All right, hello everybody, welcome back. Glad to see everybody here and enjoying lunch. We have made it to our final session. It's been an exciting few days and we've got a fantastic way to finish things off and to introduce our amazing closing speaker is the co-chair of the New Deal Forum AI Task Force, New York Assembly Member Alex Borres.
Thank you, everyone. This has been such a wonderful conference. It's been so great spending time with you. Can we get a round of applause for the New Deal organizers that put this together? I'm Assemblymember Alex Borres, along with Dorcia Pliers and Matt Mahan. I am one of the co-chairs of our AI task force, and it is an honor to introduce our final speaker, the President's Chief Technology Officer and Advisor, Dr. Arti Prabhakar. Dr. Prabhakar is she's an engineer, she is a technologist, and as an engineer in government, I am particularly inspired by people that can be in the private sector and come back into government and continue to serve in a variety of formats. In an interview earlier this year, she told Politico that her favorite books, her favorite stories were those with a Groundhog Day theme. And I think that's quite fitting as she's finishing up her third tour of duty in government. She was the first woman to lead NIST. She led DARPA, and now she leads the Office of Science and Technology Policy. So I am really excited to hear her thoughts and her wisdom. She has led the department at a time where there has probably been more technological change that has ever existed while this department has existed, and we're really thrilled to hear from her. So if I can invite up Dr. Prabhakar. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much. It does feel like Groundhog's Day sometime, and it's so great to be here with all of you. Let me just start with the most important thing of all, which is to thank each of you for the work that you're doing. This is where the rubber meets the road, and we're so grateful for everything that all of you are doing. My home is in California. Anyone here from California? We have Californians? Yes, thank you very much. And since my third cycle in DC is ending, I'll be heading back there, so counting on all of my California peeps in particular. I get to tell you a little bit about what's been going on with artificial intelligence in this administration. And I'll tell you, my personal story is I started in this job in October of 2022. ChatGPT came out the next month, and we were off to the races. And really what happened at the White House is that President Biden and Vice President Harris used this moment where all of a sudden AI was in our lives. It was behind the price you paid for an airline ticket when you went online. It might be behind a diagnosis you got from a doctor. But people weren't thinking about it. It was behind the scene. And then all of a sudden, chatbots and image generators were in our faces and people could see the AI. It was a very exciting moment, fraught with all kinds of challenges, but also huge opportunities. And President Biden and Vice President Harris used that moment to say, we have got to get the country on the right track for artificial intelligence. And what I have loved is that both of them always kept in frame the promise and the peril of this extraordinary technology, which is changing so many different aspects of how we live and work and try to thrive as a society. And so because they saw the promise and the peril, they laid out the objective, which was to manage AI's risks so that we can seize its benefits. And those two go together hand in hand. The question I get asked most frequently is, am I for it or am I against it? Do I believe in innovation or do I believe in regulation? And in fact, I think these things have to go together, because if people don't trust this amazing new technology, and if it undermines the things that we hold dear in our lives, then how are we going to use it to really do the big things that we want to be able to do? So I think it was exactly the right approach. And because AI has so many different facets. We know that it's changing the information environment. It can be used for tremendous creativity and to reach people in novel ways, but we also know that it can be used to create and spread misinformation and disinformation and really to warp reality. We know that it can be used to create phenomenal efficiencies. Think about how we process loans and mortgages and housing applications and employment applications. But we also know that if all it's doing is distilling the biases of all the bad decisions before, it's just going to implement these biased decisions at a vast scale very efficiently. We know that AI could help workers in all kinds of jobs. It's possible that AI can help workers to do more and earn more. That's the future we want. But it's also possible, and we know today that AI is being used to surveil workers so that every move and every mouse click is being monitored. It can be used to hollow out jobs and to eliminate jobs. So the futures that are ahead are on a wide spectrum from bright to dark, and the actions that we take now are the things that will really change how this comes out. That was the thinking when we launched the work of this administration. A lot of things got done in a massive executive order, global engagement, working with Congress on a bipartisan basis, working with the industry to get the first ever voluntary commitments. But here's what I think is really important, is while the work is not done, I want to give you 3 tiny examples of how the actions that we've taken are starting to change the way AI is in people's lives today. So one example is today if you go to the bank and you apply for a loan or a mortgage, almost always today that application is going to be evaluated by an AI-based system. And today, because of rules from our Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, today the bank is required to give you an explanation along with the yes or no, so you can do something about it. If you think about going to the emergency room or getting health care, more and more healthcare providers were using automated decision systems, again, AI-based systems, to make decisions about diagnosis and treatment. And today, there's a rule from the Department of Health and Human Services that says, just as with the provision of any medical care, the healthcare provider has to certify that those AI-driven decisions aren't embedding the bias and the discrimination from bad decisions of the past. And the Federal Trade Commission has put in place a rule that says you can't use AI to impersonate a person, an organization, a company, a bank, or a government agency. One piece of getting at the exacerbation of fraud that AI brings. So I think these are great examples of laws, rules that already are in place, but that we are actively doing the work to make sure that we extend to applications where AI is used. So again, I think we should be clear that there's a lot more work to be done on managing AI's risks, but I take great heart from the fact that we've been able to make this start, and it's translated to the things that are part of every American's day-to-day life and interactions in this world of technology. So that's part one, but the reason we do all the work to get AI to be safe and effective and trustworthy, the reason you build a stable platform is so you can stand on it to reach for the stars. And so let's talk about what we're going to use AI for once we figure out how to really do it responsibly. And I'll start right where all of us live, which is how we provide the critical services to Americans. That is one of the core functions of government. And the potential here is vast. It's the reason that part of the president's executive order last year was instructions to the Office of Management and Budget at the federal level to provide guidance for government agencies to make sure that they're using AI responsibly, but also to make sure they're using it, because the opportunities for delivering services better are so promising if we can get it right. A couple of examples at the federal level. I will tell you, first of all, I think this is just starting. And a lot of what we need to be doing, and is starting to happen, is experimentation. People are trying these new kinds of tools to see what works and what doesn't work, and to make sure that they are leading to the kinds of results that we really want. But here are a couple of examples that I think are very promising. The Social Security Administration is using some of the new AI tools to speed up how they process applications. For example, when they get an application that shows all the signs of being highly qualified for disability benefits, they're able to accelerate that process significantly. And overall, they've more than doubled the speed at which they're able to process new applications, which is a very significant change. Think about how that's changing lives for Americans across the country. A related example, a little bit different, is over at the Veterans Administration. When they get feedback as they provide services for our veterans across the country, they're now using AI tools to digest all of that information, all that text that they are getting, and to get, really get the gist of what that feedback is telling them. Just something that's much more efficient and able to absorb the information that's coming at them. So these are very simple examples. I think there are really exciting things, experimentation, and then really practical applications that are happening at the state and local level. I'd love to hear from you all about what you're seeing and examples of what's working and what's not. And when we get to the discussion period, I'd love to hear from you about that. But I want to leave you with this thought, and that is that today we're just starting to think through and implement how we use AI to do the things that we already know we need to do the things that we already do, but to do them more efficiently and at a faster and better. And that's a great place to start. But I want to give you a glimpse from the world of research and development about what's possible out beyond even what we're experimenting with today. One example is a vision for using AI tools, not just trained on text and language like the chatbots, but AI tools that are trained on biological data and clinical data to help design drugs much more rapidly, and couple that ability to design drugs much more rapidly with the ability for FDA to approve drugs much more rapidly. So people for a while have been talking about a vision of a future where you could take the decades that it currently takes to go from discovering that there's a new target in a cell to go after a particular ailment, decades to get to where you have an approved drug that can get out on the market that can actually meet people's needs. People have imagined what's possible with AI to shrink that to years and ultimately even to months. So think about that. Think about the fact that we have thousands of known diseases for which we have no therapy, and yet every year we only introduce about 20 or so new drugs for conditions that are unmet needs. Think about what it would mean if we could double that or increase that by 10x. So we dug in to say, well, how would that actually work? And it turns out to be a very hard problem because the data exists, but it's locked up in companies. And even if you had the data and you built these new AI models, how would you actually convince yourself? And then how would FDA convince themselves that it's reliable enough to replace the lengthy, arduous process we have today? It's a daunting prospect, but when you see what's possible, it really calls you to push forward. And recently, the president's new agency, the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health, which he started over at the Department of Health and Human Services, he had seen what DARPA has done for national security, and he said, we have got to have this kind of capacity in addition to all the good research we do at the National Institutes of Health. Let's make sure we have an ARPA for health to get after American health outcomes. ARPA-H just recently launched a program that is the beginning of this big vision about transformative drug design and approval. And the objective of their program is to design an AI model that the FDA could certify that would allow for accelerated entrance into phase 1 clinical trials for a new drug compound. So it's just the first bite. It's a very big deal by itself, but it's the beginning of a revolutionary transformation that can be possible if we pull together the federal components, the government components, along with what the private sector needs to do. And that is only one of the many things that's brewing today that allows us to imagine how AI can be transformative for the capabilities of the future. Think about how we might be able to use AI to finally actually close educational gaps for our kids in K through 12. and think about what it will mean when we can deliver a better weather forecast for people in a time of a changing climate, because we can run AI weather forecasts much more rapidly, 50,000 times faster than the models that we're running right now. There's so many prospects ahead, and the work is worthy, and the future will thank us for it. And I just want to say that it's such a privilege, I think, for all of us who are in public service to start on this path. It's a time when I think it's important to remember how big the things are that this country can do. So thank you again for the part that you all play in making that possible, and I look forward to our discussion. Thanks for having me.
Hi, Andrea McClellan, Norfolk City Council. This is on a more personal note. Just curious, do you use ChatGPT, and have 3 tips for how we could better utilize it? I know it's very mundane, but...
No, I think it's a great question. I do use it. Like every other large organization that is worried about protecting its data, the federal government does not have wide open access to use of those tools in our work environment. But I definitely go off in my personal life and experiment with it. I use it to explore topics that I don't really understand very well. I live in a world where I get to talk to scientists who do leading edge work in every conceivable field, and if it doesn't happen to be my field, I often need something that takes it from this arcane, complex language to what does that really mean and what difference does it make. So it's a great tool for that kind of thing. I find I just did an exercise where I wanted to give a presentation, and I wanted to have images to convey what it was called Postcards from the Future. I wanted to convey what different futures might look like, and I did some brainstorming with image generators for that. I ended up working with a human artist for a whole variety of reasons, but I think it's really interesting in a brainstorming mode. So, again, I think it's a time to experiment. So just like if you haven't, spin it up and take it for a ride. And I think what I find is it's astonishing what it can do, and it's also really important to understand what it can't do. And then as you play with it, you really see where you do want to use it.
Doctor, thanks so much for coming. Adrian Fuentes, Secretary of State in Arizona. For about the last 7 months or so, and we'll accumulate our work in January, I've had an AI advisory committee, including folks from all of them, like ChatGPT, Google, Meta's there, Microsoft, et cetera, and a whole bunch of folks in academia. And we've been talking through a lot of these issues and applications in government, specifically as it pertains to election administration, but so much of that translates into a lot of different areas. I'm going to put you on the spot here and invite you, once we have the draft of the report, if you don't mind, to review it and potentially write an introduction for us, if you'd like.
You realize that I turn into a pumpkin on January 20th, right? Do we understand that?
Well, I mean, pumpkins are people too. So I would.
Words to live by.
I'd love to have the conversation with you, but we've done a lot of that work in sort of as it applies to government stuff. We're right there with a lot of the folks that are doing this, and I would love to invite you to just kind of bring your voice into it as well, because we're going to be putting something out that I think a whole bunch of folks are going to be able to benefit from, and I'd extend that invitation.
Yeah, and seriously, I think that we have a small team at OSTP, all of whom are now departing for other adventures, and where there are opportunities at the state or local level to tap into some of this expertise that has seen a lot of different things that are going on in AI, please make those links, and we'd be very happy to connect you to people who might be helpful to you down the road.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for your work.
Hi, good afternoon. Kate Burns from Metro Lab. I had the privilege of attending AI Aspirations. It was wonderful, and given your history of DARPA, you were very good at thinking about moonshot challenges. And so as we have so many state and local elected officials in this room, is there any guidance you can give as to thinking about the use cases of AI? What are some ways to think about aspirational uses of it, but in a really tactical sense?
I love that question. That's where I like to live. And part of the reason I love setting a big, huge barely imaginable goal is, even if you don't fully get there in the near term, it draws you to do bigger things, and the practical things that come in its wake can be really important. One of the, this was a conference we had called AI Aspirations, where I invited 7 people across government to imagine what was possible, like the drug design and approval example I gave you. One of the aspirations was about a transformative capability for delivering government services. And what Mo Early from OMB, who spoke about that, what she imagined was a future where a person or family who's gone through a disaster does not, isn't like trying to find the right form and getting sort of, being able to search and find what they need, but where the help comes to them because it's possible for FEMA and all the other agencies that need to step up and help in a disaster to know who was affected, how they were affected, to be able to make a good prediction or guess about what they now need and meet them where they are. And I'll tell you, when you live in the commercial, as a consumer, we're living in a world where tech companies are anticipating our every need, and it's, you click a couple of buttons and magical things happen, things show up at your doorstep, forms are automatically filled out. I think we just need to be really clear that a major reason that it's been hard to move that aggressively on the public sector side is that, unlike tech companies, we are not asking you to sign away your privacy at the click of a button, signing off on terms of use that nobody has ever read. And, and I do it willingly. I give away a lot of my personal privacy for all of that convenience, but we, as the public sector holding people's extremely private data, have to guard it, and we have a different kind of obligation. So I think, the vision of what can be possible if we bring modern technology and capabilities to government service delivery is transformative, and we have to achieve it, because if democracy doesn't work for people, then we can't proceed. And I think that is exactly the moment we're at. So how we reach our citizens and fulfill their needs for which they rely on the public sector, I can't think of anything that's more important. And I think we need to realize that, in my view, there are 2 very significant barriers. One is figuring out rigorously how to manage privacy. And the other is the fact that when I look, at least across federal government, and I hope it's better for you all, but I don't know if it is, what I see is agency after agency who simply cannot get funds appropriated to even do the most basic work to upgrade computing systems and manage data, which is just table stakes for being able to apply all of these advanced tools. So I think we have some real investment to do. AI offers the potential to do that more efficiently. And then once you've built that foundation of computing and data that you need to be able to deliver services that are radically better. But none of that it's not magic pixie dust, right? It's actually going to take investment and experimentation and work. But I think if we can show people how big the opportunity is, my hope is we can make more progress than we've been able to make so far. All right. Thank you all. What a pleasure to be with you. Take care.
I'm going to walk slowly because it's that time to say goodbye, which I hate. Just a huge thank you. What an